I'm going to send out a, is this okay, volume to Virginia? It's good?
Yes.
All right.
Shaming me.
It's just shaming you? Oh, gosh. Mm. So what I created was a Google form that I will send out to everybody right now. And what this is to help with the voting. If you remember in the class, we were going to do best, funniest, the most innovative, those kind of things. So what this does is gives each one of us an opportunity to vote, to kind of rank and rate other projects. Just a scale from 1 to 10. Actually, let me bring it up there. We can all look at it together. Now, of course, you're not supposed to rate your own. So don't give yourself all 10s. Let me take a look here. Kind of going somewhere. Oh, there it is. So yeah, once you put in your name and your email, it'll go through the order. So the presentation order that you see in the form will be the presentation order that we have here today. So in this example, our first presentation is going to be neighborly. So we'll go through it and say, hey, it causes awe, it's spectacular, it's magnificent. Whether you want to give it, I would say 10 is like a wow, this is really, really groundbreaking. 9 would be this is amazing. Whereas 1 would be like, wow, it's not at all that. So is it useful? Does it serve a practical purpose? So we're going to have little awards. I can't tell you what they're going to be yet, but we are going to do little awards for each of these. So, and that'll be announced this next week. So, and it's all up to you guys what you vote for. So, the usefulness of it, is it creative? Does it look like original ideas? Does it have a high level of tech? Is there some stuff in there that we maybe have not covered in class that's kind of gone a little bit above the standard level of tech? Oh, how does it look? How does it work? The UI, the UX, right? Is it easy to understand experience? Does it look good? That kind of thing. Does it have a sense of humor? Some of the presentations today are kind of funny. They have kind of they're cute or funny or kitschy. Is that a word? Go with it. Go with that one. How disruptively innovative is the project? I mean, is it really groundbreaking? Does it have some crazy features that we've never seen before? That kind of thing. I don't expect to see a lot of this, but if it's there, I'm gonna give it to them, right? So how socially conscious is the project? Does it solve a problem or injustice of a society or community? Something that helps out a community a lot in a social manner. Or any other justice. Does anybody have any questions about any of those categories? All right. Fist of 5, who understands all the categories? Right. Yeah. Like I said, please don't vote for your own because that will skew the voting like really horribly. But yeah, just be honest and go through it. So. Wait, obviously, to vote until you see all the presentations. While they're up there, you can go ahead and vote. And then, when we move on to the next presentation, you move your slide, you go and vote while they're giving their presentation. Does that make sense, everybody? Cool. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
No.
Sure?
Yeah. We need to wait. Yeah. We go second.
You want me a second?
We just have to, we're on the last second to get the
Yeah.
problem.
Sure. Sure, that doesn't mess anything up.
No.
You guys good or not? If not, I can switch it.
Give us the ones, just pre-fill it out.
Huh? Okay, well, here, I'll swap you. You guys okay with going second under one woof? That's you guys. You guys want to go first?
Sure.
You sure? Okay, well, give me a second and I'll change this up. All right, guys. At this time, I'd like to welcome up now. So guys, it's a good practice when people come up to the front or they walk back. We got to give them an applause. Okay, it's a good social practice. So let's welcome up Under One Roof.
We just need a link that's on.
Oh.
Just copy that.
We're gonna copy and paste it.
Good morning, everybody. We're gonna first start by introducing ourselves, and then we'll go ahead and go with opening. So my name is Karen Beltran. I'm Nicole Brazenly.
DJ Steinmetz.
Corey Miller.
And we are Under One Roof. So basically what you see here, we wanted to, create an app. So when you want to adopt a dog, we know that can be a hassle, right? To find out all there is to know about a dog and being a dog owner. And sometimes you have to search through countless pages and, hear by word of mouth about how to take care of your dog, right? With this app, we'll make, your search easy for a dog and education on how to become the ultimate dog owner easier and accessible. Our aim is to make your choice of a dog a smooth process and to have you equipped at your earliest convenience. So I'm just gonna go ahead and delve in. So you're gonna go ahead and have to put a valid zip code. Otherwise, you're gonna go ahead and get an error that you're not, you have to put a valid zip code so you can find your dog nearest the shelter area here that you see there. One of the things that we're gonna also talk about is just the technologies. Right now, what you're seeing here, we use the Pet Finder API. To get all of the brief information such as the dog name and the age. We did have to use JSON with padding. So what that means is, usually with just the JSON call, it's just the same domain reference. JSON with padding solved the cross-domain reference because we were using a different domain for this one. So when we did an AJAX method call, we had to do the same, key values, URL, and then we also had to do JSON-P, and then we had to do the key value callback, data type key, and then JSON-P, what am I saying? The JSON-P value. And then within the data key, we had to do a object value where we actually have to do the JSON call. So we can get you these cards here. And then Corey's gonna go ahead and talk about the Maps API.
So for the Google Maps API, I basically just followed their documentation to the T. And we went through and created our custom icons. You click on an icon. We also did info windows. That info window will bring you directly to that shelter's adoption site pretty quickly. And that's pretty much all for Google Maps API.
And then we have our dogs FAQ page. This page is just a few questions that we thought of. We have the explore nearby shelters that just brings us back to our homepage. And then our find vet clinics and our find resources buttons go to our community resource page. And this is where we used Firebase. We have a form in the middle of this page that we any user could push information to give like new resources for everyone to use about dog supplies and training and such. And we push that to the Fire database, and to pull it out of the database, we use the .ref.on child added snapshot method. And then we printed it to the table above. We also have a map of the nearby veterinary clinics near the user.
So what I dealt with the most was the layout and design of the website and app. So we're going to go ahead and play a little demo video of what it looks like on mobile, and I'll talk a little bit about what technologies we use. That's not the right thing. Okay, so for the layout, we used Bootstrap. For its obvious, we all know it's really responsive on mobile. So that's what we used there. And then I used a few media queries for things that didn't hold up, which we'll talk about in the problems that we faced. So we just used Bootstrap cards for all of the information layouts and used a lot of target blanks to get things to open in new tabs so that you don't get taken away from the app itself. The community resources page was a little bit difficult, which again I'll talk about in just a second here. But that's the basis of the mobile layout. So now we'll talk about the issues we had.
Yeah.
Okay, so the issues that I had with the mobile layout was that primarily the Bootstrap tables are responsive up to a certain point, but when you get them down to like cell phone size, it creates a horizontal scroll, which is not pretty. So what we did to combat that is just use media queries to turn them into like these little card layouts instead of row layouts. And then another issue that I had was with parsing through the JSON-P data and getting that to display on the dog cards on the homepage. The genders were laid out in an array, so some of them had more than one breed if they were mixed, and some of them just had one. So I could get the ones with single breeds to display on the card, but the ones with multiple breeds I couldn't display as well. So that's pretty much the problems that I had.
Yeah, so we also want to talk about just the future of this application. We do want to go ahead and make like a favorites page. Not a favorites page, but like a favorites like good button within the cards. We wanted to go ahead and use Firebase to save those cards and maybe create like a user profile. So when they come back and log in, they can go ahead and see if their dog is still up for adoption. We also want to go ahead and be able to search by breed, age, and gender. And then with the community forum, we also want to go ahead and have the users download their own files so they can give their own input. And then we also want to incorporate probably the Yelp API for reviews on shelters and clinics near your area to see if that's the environment you want to go ahead and take your dog or adopt a dog from. Yeah, that's pretty much under one roof right now.
Do you guys have questions? Do we have questions we'd like to bring up? Other than anybody? Go first. Oh. Yeah, go ahead.
What is the Pathfinder API? Does that just return all the locations of like animal shelters, or what data?
Yeah, with like, turn it on. Yeah. With that one, you know, I also we had issues with that as well, but usually within, they have a really big scope, I think, throughout the United States where you put any zip code and like all, you know, pets and stuff come out, shelters come out. So it's a pretty broad international thing. So it's pretty big. It's just the other issue that we had, like just like DJ was saying, just JSON is like a new format we haven't really talked about. So it was kind of, you know, just within our area, we had to keep it. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, just the it returns basically just a giant object that has the different. It's got dog images, the names of the dogs. It's just got a whole bunch of information about the dogs that are nearby, whatever search parameter that you put in.
In that object too, it also has a shelter ID, which we couldn't figure out exactly. And in the future, we would try to like put that shelter ID into the Google Maps API, but that wasn't in our MVP goal.
Did you say that the adding the user was part of the future?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any more questions, guys? Anybody? No? You guys got it easy. Awesome. Great job. That's fantastic. I played around with that one last night. So yeah. All right. So make sure on your Google form that you are rating the correct presentation, because those got swapped in the 9th hour. So make sure at the top it says under one roof and not neighborly. So when you're doing your voting, don't forget to do the voting as well. You should have that up in front of your screen during the presentations. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, they're not required fields, so I should just be able to go right there. Yeah. All right. Let me get this repo set up and.
We just I love it. Yeah. All right, guys. At this time, I want to welcome
of the Mod Squad, and the project is Neighborly.
All right, good morning, everyone. Just gonna start off with intros of who we are. My name is Abdullahi.
Tunji.
I'm Kenneth.
I'm Steve.
And we are Neighborly. The name says it all. It's a website intended for neighbors. Our initial inspiration, as we mentioned before, our good friend Ken here, he had issues with, his neighbors taking too much time in the laundry room. So that was the initial inspiration of this app, just to get him, just to kick him out of the laundry room. But then we expanded on that idea, and we decided to just make it a little bit more about neighbors, connecting with our neighbors, being able to, share events. If we have any issues, like anything we need help with, whether it's we need flour or bread or something, or we have a flat tire of some sort, we're able to post that. And yeah, that's the overall idea of our app.
Okay, I'm gonna speak about the MVP. So basically what we wanted for the MVP was something where you could go to the site, you could see events on a page. On those events, they have an address, a time, a location, and you can get information about your neighbors doing that. And you can then look at a map and be like, okay, click on this map. The map will render some information, data, and locations of these events, so you know where you can go for these events. There's a lot we can add to this, and there's a lot we can change, but I think we're pretty happy with where we're at right now. I mean, for the last 3 minutes, we've been happy, but no, we're not. But on a more serious note, yeah, so we got our little event page, and then we got a create event button, so somebody can create an event if you're part of it, and yeah.
Okay, I can do that. So this is version 6. And we ran into some issues with getting stuff up to GitHub. But essentially, one of the first things we did was we tried to put together a simple user interface. So we've got an index page. That index page has the neighbor logo that we came up with. Use the favicon so you can see that. We've got a link to the maps page, and then of course we've got a login as well. Now it turns out that Firebase has this authentication feature And our initial plan was to try and, allow users to be able to authenticate with Google, with Gmail or with Facebook. But what I discovered on Thursday was that as of February of this year, you actually have to be hosting in a web server environment for those features to work. But you can get the regular username, email address, and password to work. So we created that, but when we added it the last time, it broke our navigation completely. So we've temporarily removed it. And what we want to do instead is to have this become a modal. So when you click on this, a little pop-up appears, showing your information and sign in. And we've got it to work in such a way where you can actually sign up, or if your credentials exist in the database already, you can log in. Other than that, the create event here just simply takes a string of information that you have and populates, a date, time, event, where, and description, much like we did an assignment in class before. The other thing we'd like to do is somehow have a link for each particular event. So when you click on that, it pushes you to the map page. Still haven't figured that out, but hopefully we should be able to crack that by Monday. The map page will show you the events. Well, first you have to accept allow location. There's something in here, I don't know where it is.
You said don't allow it to know.
So anyway, it shows you where you are currently, and it also starts to show you the existing events that are going on, the location. Right here. Go back. And then what else were we going to add? We were going to add the chat feature as well. Oh, I should go ahead and add it. Right. So one of the last things we want to do is obviously just tidy up this. We had it fully responsive. I think we broke something, so our photo is misbehaving. Because when you go into mobile view, this starts to act funny down here, but we'll also figure that out. So one of the little things, again, just to wrap up, is that we want to add like some chat functionality into it. And I'll let Steve take over.
Okay, I'm just going to talk about how it works. So this modal pops up. This is kind of the code part things. You create a title for your event, give it a date, and if the date has already passed, so like 6:30 this morning, it essentially will go into the database, but it won't populate the table, and it also won't show up on the map because it already happened. The idea is that you can go onto this app and you can see something happening today, right now in your neighborhood, and you can find something to do, or you can connect with your neighbors. And we got that to work just by using kind of a simple moment.js if-else statement that if the timestamp for now is greater than the timestamp for the event, it just won't populate, but it will still exist in the database. And we did that because one additional feature that might be fun to add would be a little search bar so that you can see events that have already occurred. You could look up events from the past. Thought that might be kind of cool. The map API is just Google Maps API. We would have liked to have used Facebook API for the login, but that's still kind of a work in progress. Geolocation to, let's see, is it working? Oh yeah, it's working already. To find your location and click on a thing. Yep. That populates the information that you have going on for the day. And I guess the only other thing to mention is we used Bootstrap for the layout. I suppose that's mostly it. Thank you.
that you feel is the closest to the way that you originally.
I feel,
I would think the map features, that feels well. Thanks to Steve and Ken, they were frazzled by the time they solved it. It was good.
I'm happy that when you create an event, it seems to function correctly. That's cool.
yeah, that is really nice. The map, I'm very happy with the map. I worked a lot with the map. It was very frustrating, but it looks good. Got it to do a lot of things I didn't think it could do. So one thing I would have recommend if you are working with maps, look for a language, not a library called Leaflet. I found it late last night. I think it's much better than Google Maps, and it's really strong. If you know anything about GIS and polygons, and Pierre here, GIS master, it's wonderful. You can do radiuses, you can find, you can just do a lot with it. Do whatever you want with it, really. Any spatial data you can do with it.
What do you do with the date when it passes? So did you make both of those events today, or did you, do they remove from the date?
They don't, they will not appear because we used an if else moment statement, but they are still in the database.
Did you guys consider putting on some like just error handling for past events if it accidentally entered in?
We didn't quite get that far, but we just made it invisible. If it's passed. We didn't quite get far enough to say like, hey, this date is passed. But that would be a good thing to have.
Yeah, there's error handling in the map itself.
Sure.
There's problems with the map. That's if you blocking locations and stuff.
Awesome. Any other questions?
Time for one more.
And the map only populates with the current active events, not any of the old ones?
That is correct. There is no old events that are on the map.
Yep, that's well. Same thing.
You're getting used to the geolocation.
There's a lot you can do with this idea too. Like start asking. There's a lot. Like I would like to change the map things like different colors. So if somebody needed help, it would be a red pin. If it's an event, it's a blue pin. If it's things like that, make it look pretty. That's words, categories. But
not sure if I missed this, but how are you going to keep like the community users informed that that's there?
We're gonna buy a bunch of YouTube ads and make it so you can't skip it. Buy the premium version. That's what we're doing. No, actually, I don't know. If there was free marketing, I'm a big fan of Tesla. You send some to space and make people watch, but
we can send some to space.
No, we'll probably just use, if we had to, we'd use things like Twitter, Twitch, Facebook. Well, not Facebook, but anything that's a free medium of putting something out there. And, if a community, I'm an introvert. I don't like going out. I don't really like meeting new people. I don't need that. But I know other people do. And my girlfriend is one of those people. She was raving about this. She's like, I would do this. I love garage sales. I like going out. I like doing this stuff. So I know other people would have a reason to use this app. So if the word got out, people would probably be like, "Have you heard of this Neighborly?" That
old-fashioned word of mouth.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
And I do have a question for the audience, I guess. Neighborly, would you rather have it RLY or LEE? I've never heard so many wrong people in one room. But that's already taken, so you can't take that. It has to be LEE. So it was a trick question. You're all wrong. You didn't see. No, I'm kidding. Thanks, I can't read it. No, that's really good to know.
Yeah, make it darker on the white background, otherwise I can't see a neighborly at all right there.
Okay.
So you hub it.
We can do that. Unfortunately, I get.
I'm good.
All the colors. Sorry.
Yeah, presentation is
Outside of the problem. Yeah, that's it. It's too late. Where is that? Yeah, thank you. Sure. Okay. The A team. All right, guys, let's welcome the A team with Camp Out. Where is the readme? Where I Thanks. Hopefully this works. Bear with us a second. Cool. Yeah, we're doing it. Cool. All right.
Okay.
And I think we gotta use this. Yeah, probably.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I got you. Got my HTTP.
How's it?
No?
There.
Ah!
This must be the loud one.
That's the loud one.
So to Jeff Bezos's dismay, we're doing a PowerPoint. So our app is Camp Now. I'm Bev Nelson, and I'll just let everyone else introduce themselves as we switch the mic.
That sounds great.
So who does Camp Now have in mind? The serious outdoor adventure seeker who wants to know where to go and how to prepare for the trip with weather and available activities and amenities in mind. The persona is Steve, an avid camper, hiker, and fisherman. He also loves to bike, kayak, and hang by the campfire with his guitar. He is aged 30 to 40, middle to upper class. He shops at REI, Moose Job, and frequents local bike shops. So we started out our app project with project management. I come out of a project management / marketing, so I can't do a project without one. Our objectives and scopes were discussed and decided amongst the group. Clear and defined roles were assigned to each member, but it was understood that the support and assistance would come when available from others managing other portions of the project. A project management tool was chosen. We chose Trello, and we'll show you why in a moment. Slack was a primary communication tool with one team member stand up using Google Hangouts, and Joe was our team lead. So we had great instruction and support. He did most of the management through the GitHub flow, and the group managed the Trello board, and all worked together in the GitHub workflow and the communication tools. So this is Trello. This is what we used for our project management tool. And in it, you can see we've got all these sideboards for our prioritization, workflow management. We also used a label structure so that we knew where the hangups were, questions, what were we working with in certain cards, so that we could all chime in if we needed to. And then once it was complete, it went to a black label. And you can tell we've got some that we never marked as complete. Website look and feel, I'll hand that one over.
Hey everybody, my name is Blake Vanderbosch. We had a pretty exhaustive and extensive brainstorming session to come up with an idea, and we had a lot of great ideas, but then the question was, how do we make this work? So once we decided on Camp Now, we're we're all outdoors people, so that appealed to us. We had to decide what do we want this to do, how do we want users to interact with it, are we actually going to make this work? And from there, we decided to divide the labor because we were going to be using 3 APIs. So Josh and Joe decided to focus on those, while Bev and I focused more on the front end to get things moving on that side. We wanted to create a kind of inviting, an expansive picture of a campground that can make you feel like you're there. You can, smell the campfire and all that fun stuff. We also wanted to make it simple and pretty user-friendly, easy to interact with. And that took various forms, from beginning to end. And we ended up, taking some things out, adding some things in, mostly taking things out. And we initially exclusively used the Bootstrap framework, but some things weren't working out exactly how we wanted them to, so we just ended up doing a lot of manual coding for CSS. And you'll see our site in a little bit here. A couple of the conflicts we ran into on the design side were, working exclusively in Bootstrap and then kind of making our own elements that we created cooperate. So I, for example, spent an inordinate amount of time making a button, which was fun. Good to get some experience there. We tossed out the Jumbotron. That was a nice placeholder for a while. And then Bev ended up putting a lot of time into our modal for to pop up when the search parameters aren't met or it doesn't fit the format there. That's on to Josh.
Hi, I'm Josh. Okay, so we had to change around the original design of our product a couple times, and due to time constraints and some coding issues that we just weren't able to work around. So in doing so, we had to revise our MVP. This screenshots of what our original front page looked like. It had 3 prompts for the user. It asked for the state they live in, the days they want to go camping, and if they want to refine their search to campgrounds that just have specific activities that they're looking for, they could do a filter search. But after our revisions, this is what we finalized. We condensed everything to where the user can get all the information they need from just one input field. And everything that I'm going to discuss, Joe's going to demo. So when the user puts in their information and submits it, the backend renders out all the campgrounds that are in the state that they selected. First thing they see is the 5-day weather forecast for whatever region that campground is in, and then it shows some basic campground information. Every panel is different. It all depends on what the API gave us. Some have pictures, some have some information, some history about the camp. It all varies. I did the weather functionality for this project. The API that I used was Open Weather Map, and originally the intention was for this website to function as a 2-week planner, but the problem that we ran with that is that Open Weather Map only offers it does offer a 16-day forecast option, which was behind a paywall. So we opted for the 5-day option, which was free. We didn't know how to take that 5-day block and break it up into individual days. So just being forced to work with whatever the API allowed us to work with, we ended up with using the current 5-day forecast. So our finalized MVP is for people that want to go camping in the current week, and they'll show weather and general information for whatever day they selected. I'll pass it up to Joe.
I'm Joe. This was a great project to work on. We got to use a lot of different APIs to incorporate what we ultimately were aiming for. So what do we know we want the person to be able to do? Well, we know they want to camp in the next 5 days. That's the conceit that you have to give us. You're going to camp now, pretty much. We're going to tell them about the national parks and the amenities. I just heard the timer go off, so we're just going to skip ahead to the demo. So here we go. I thought it was open. I apologize, it was not. So it has to be a state value. So if you do GG, sorry, no dice. But if you do, let's do Wisconsin. Sorry, I know Wisconsin, not everyone's favorite in the Twin Cities. We give you all the national parks within Wisconsin. Each one of these is clickable. This data is being surfaced from the National Park Services API. Gives you a good idea of what to expect at that park. And then for this one, after you click on it, it gives you the weather forecast for the 5 days across the top. This image is actually being pulled in from the Google Places library, which I can commiserate with anyone else that played around with the Google Maps or Google Places API. They're hefty, they're robust, and they are a pain to kind of incorporate exactly what you want to do. So in an ideal world, we would be able to pull in a lot more information from there and incorporate it, but for scope, we limited what we were doing. And then we're getting you the amenities for all the campgrounds within that national park. This one only has one, but I can tell you it doesn't have internet. It does have toilets. If we're going to any state park, I kind of want to know. I've heard, yep. And potable water, food storage, and whether or not you need to be worried about laundry. We keep the form down here so you can just open up another. It overwrites the page, gives you all the state parks in Florida, and if there's multiple campgrounds there, we're showing you that information as well. There you go. Sorry we went a little bit over there. Questions? Yes?
Does it look like Wisconsin? You must have a how many parks you
National parks only. So that is one part. If we could and had the time and the resources were available, it would be great to leverage all the state parks. But I wasn't sure, doing a little bit of research, if each state has their own API or if there was some type of third party that aggregates that for us. We already had 3 APIs going. I didn't want to toss a fourth in the mix.
That's a really good question.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not that he hates Wisconsin. And
no, I like that. Great camping. Yes, please.
So for more Wisconsin, I know you guys said that for Bootstrap you had to do the media queries. Is that what you guys did?
Well, we didn't completely take it out. We just pulled out some elements.
Oh.
Yep. Not everything functionally we were there. We did mostly add-ons, but luckily we didn't have to touch media queries too much.
Just a comment, you know that Polaris is trying to build up something like that.
Who is?
Polaris.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
We work next to their office. I'll just
Not me.
My office is next to their office, so I'll just
we can do an elevator pitch for them.
Presentations are the project.
Got it. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. I used to play
guess please welcome the indie coders and on the go-go.
One other side.
Yeah, as close to that way as we can. Just close.
Hi. Hello. Okay. My name is Sherry.
Scott?
I'm Lisa.
Abdi?
Jag?
So for presentation purposes, we're displaying our app on the mobile because eventually we do want it to be a mobile app. And the problem we're trying to solve is basically a quick Google search for people who are on the go, people who are busy, and essentially people who are in a new area. With this easy, like one button click application, the individual can pull up the nearest location, such as a coffee shop or a gas station, within like a quick seconds.
Good, sure. All right, so I'll do a quick demonstration, then I'll talk about the design process that we went through. The idea here is that we want to go mobile first from the get-go, so it allows the user to add buttons as they would like. And then we pull information from both Foursquare and a local map and IP to find your location, and then we're displaying out here. That's interesting. What doesn't work on that? Interesting. Must be from the local host. I'm displaying this at an iframe. So it worked on my computer and all the computers we tested on, but that's interesting that it doesn't display. So there's a scroll bar for this one.
Do you have it on a GitHub page?
Yeah, it's on my GitHub.
Or do you have it on Pages?
Yeah. See if we can figure that out real quick. Oh, I'm gonna have to log in. It's not gonna work. Never mind. Okay.
Oh yeah, we're open up that. You can use it.
Okay. That's all right. The problems of trying to do a presentation on the blind without testing it on the actual application presentation first. Anyway, I'll go through the design process. Originally, all right, we were given the idea of coming up with an application, and we, being movie lovers and people who like to visit various locations, originally came up with the idea in our brainstorming that we wanted a movie search app that would allow us to find local areas that display movies that we were interested in, give reviews and times. Ultimately, though, we figured out that we couldn't get the Foursquare app API to provide that information that we were looking for, and failing to get that other APIs to work for, we decided to switch gears and fail fast and move to something that was a little bit more similar to what we wanted but different, which is a more generic search. In this case, an application that allowed the user to search in the local areas for various categories that they were working on. We'll get that in a second. We broke up the tasks between front end, back end, and the design amongst the team members. We had various whiteboard and brainstorming sessions as we went through. We used the issues tab in GitHub for various communication and assigning of tasks, as it were. Oops. This is so weird to drive on your computer. I'm not a Mac guy, sorry. I'm gonna hand it off. You can talk about how we originally got to this aspect as we moved away from our other app idea.
So as Scott was saying, we had 2 or 3 other great ideas, and we worked on CSS, we had the framework, it was all ready to go until the API was not connecting to what we wanted it to do. So we decided, oh great, we did all this work, now it's Saturday, what are we gonna do? We have a week, so we needed to plan a study group. So 3 or 4 of us were looking for a library, a restaurant anywhere that had Wi-Fi, a bar even, so we could study. And we couldn't find a place. So we thought, we can make an app for this. So that is how this came to be. You can see it's very user-friendly, very plain, but as you're driving, one little button is easier to click than trying to find a search and then click on the maps and go through. So it's practical, it's simple, it's easy, it's user-friendly, and that's how we started. After you go tell us more.
So we used a couple of technology. For the front end, we used Bootstrap. For the layout, for jQuery, CSS. For CSS, we used a website called animate.css. for the footer. For the API, we used a website called hereapi.com to find the API. We used API address, IP address location for the location accuracy. We used Foursquare for term search, Firebase, and yeah, that's all we used. I will hand over to Jack.
So I'm going to talk about why we did and why we chose to use this particular design and what was the logic behind it. So because our problem was very purely human, we focused on human-centric design. Our focus was to create something which can be used with one hand, particularly your thumb, as demonstrated in the demo. We wanted to provide limited options to customers. The first question was, what should be those top 4 options? But you cannot answer those without research. So we have a Firebase database which captures the user's input every time they add a button. And that logs into a Firebase, and once we have enough empirical evidence, then we will reprioritize those 3 or 4 buttons, and we do not intend to go more than that, where people can just click and find coffee, beer, food around their geolocation and straight away drive there. Human-centric design prioritizes the needs, context, behaviors over the solutions we can serve. So even though we could choose a variety of APIs, add a bunch of fancy stuff, we had to strategically not do that and focus on having a clean, very clean layout. Very functional, very clean. The colors are mostly primary. You want to click on something? Oh, we've reached the time limit, so why for you guys? You guys don't get to know more about the stuff.
That's it. Questions? Yes.
Where do I get gear after class?
Place 3 blocks.
It's not gonna work. Foursquare limits us to 10 searches, and I clicked it too many times.
So that's part of our strategy, is to get some revenue, is to either have some ads or sell the customer data so that we can pay Foursquare to get more customer data. That's kind of a circle we intend to create.
Yeah, the Zuckerberg method, I like it.
It's not an original idea.
Are you using location-based? Yeah, so there you put that in there, right? Which it search for there's an IP address in the actual browser that we pull, and then it looks to it does an API AJAX request to find a longitude and latitude location based on that IP address on your browser, and then that gets inputted into Foursquare to find a locations based on a search term. And then we take those search terms and we find details on them again.
So you're just using the IP to find the location? Yeah, so we're using the geolocation function in HTML. That gives us the latitude, longitude, which we put them in a variable, and we pass the variable into the API as X and Y. And we're using the same geolocation function for centering the map as well. So the map gets centered to your location, and Here API, which I posted on Slack, is a great resource, source traffic, and a bunch of other stuff.
What's that?
Here, HERE, it's the base API for Bing Maps. Yeah, and you can put radius, you can put accuracy. It's a pretty fun API, but that's for version 2.
So are your buttons listed in priority?
Currently they're not. They're listed in just how they are entered into Firebase. But we allow the user to add additional buttons, but version 2 would obviously be allow them to delete and then also add buttons as well.
You get the gas before you.
That's a fair point. We appreciate your user feedback.
Not in this version, no. It just gives you a map with the address and the website and the map. But obviously, if you had more time to build Google Maps places into it, that would be an easy feature to add.
But we have a working map which has that feature. So we have a working in HTML file which does all of that. We just didn't put it in there right now.
Have you thought about having multiple API keys and then somehow looping through them?
I can go back. I mean, I don't want to take up our time since we're running out, but yeah, we were doing that for the development. I think we have 3 different APIs that we currently do. I think actually Cohort would kick me off because I may have abused the API during the development.
Then we use my API, so we've been like, but that's an interesting idea that maybe we can put them in an I loop or something, and it's just hits one API, then hits the other one.
If we get a 429 error, just switch to the next one.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
That's
a way to get around that.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure they
I
will.
always encourage hacking. Awesome. Do you guys have any more questions?
Are you guys going to set a timeout for the coffee month?
No, that's
I like that coffee month.
That was our end.
So one of our
that's
designs,
not distracting at all.
yeah, one of our designs didn't have it, but then we were so passionate about it that we decided to throw that in there. I'm glad you asked about it. It was worth it.
Good call. Any more questions, guys? All right, great job. All right, guys, let's welcome Code 4 and Boredom Beater.
Hi, thank you. So we're Code 4. We're not a singing group, as it might sound, so we're not dropping any single today, but we do have a website we're going to present. So we chose to come up with an app that helps you decide what to do on a day where maybe you don't have any idea what you should do, maybe you're a little bored. I'm sure you've all been there. You get a little older, your friends start getting married, or they just get old and they're lazy, they don't want to do anything anymore. So what we've created is a boredom beater, which the idea is you have maybe one friend or significant other, maybe you're sitting around the house, you decide, hey, let's go out do something today, let's do something tonight.
Sorry, guys, real quick. This is also event planner. Sorry. So event planner. That's all right. That's all right.
Like boredom beater a little better.
No, that's great. Event planner.
So you're looking for something to do, you and your friend, you're not cool anymore, so you don't know what to do in the city, so you punch in your zip code here in Boredom Beater, and what it's going to do is populate a list of events, and also it's going to be paired with the weather forecast. So on days like today where it feels like the Sahara out there, or like if it's rainy, you'll know like to pack an umbrella. Let's see. Oh, we've also paired it with the restaurant, so it comes up with a random restaurant choice. If you're feeling adventurous, you can go with that pick. It might pop up even like Papa John's, so you can order pizza in, or it might be like Revival, you go get some chicken. And our target audience is basically like you guys out here, maybe a little bit younger even. But basically this group, if you're looking for something to do, and so Boredom Beater, if you need something to do, basically type in your zip code, events, weather, restaurant, and yeah. So I'll pass it over to John here.
All right. So I'm going to go over I'm sorry. I'm going to go over the design process. Well, all right, so the first step is to find problem. So just wanted to find an event to help me to attend to get rid of the boredom, pretty much. So we used the 3 APIs, and well, how we came up with the idea for people who wanted to find something to do, pretty much. And so how we divided the work. So Mike and I, we decided to do the front end, the CSS, the Bootstrap, the JavaScript, JS, and Anand and John, kind of took care of the backend pretty much. So the APIs and the Ajax, and I will be discussing the technologies used for the application.
Hi. So we use 3 APIs. The first one is Eventful to pull up the events list based on the zip code that you enter. And also the next API that we use is called Pixu, Weather App API to pull the weather of the current day. And then we use Google API for a restaurant, and we just randomize from the list to give you a list of restaurant, or just give you one random restaurant. And then we play around with some visual JS libraries, like I think we use Granims and Anime.js. So if you're really bored, you could just stare at the
Okay, I'm Mike. So now we'll go through and do the demo, see how it actually works. So, let's northeast, see what we got. Oh my gosh. It's a Mac, strike 2. So,
Jason, so just in case if we have that issue too, so how do we access it to GitHub?
Yeah.
Go to this URL you should use. And then go to here.
This was Chris's fault, everybody. Yeah, Chris's fault. Time's charm, here we go. Oh, that's it. So, gotta pull up on my computer. Can we just faster? Wasted.
So,
So my name is whatever the username is.
All right. All right, there we go. Here we go. Okay, here we go. So restaurants up to my zip code. It pulled a random. Why don't we try Costa Blanca Bistro? I've never been there, so I don't know if you do. And then it pulls in multiple events, just kind of random. We go to a T-ball game, why not? Gymnastics classes, if you're really feeling just a one. All right. 1 point. 1 point, all right. 1 minute, that's not our score. Okay. Really scared me on that one. It's like, come on, it's not that bad.
We're gonna let you finish, but that's all it'll do.
Hey, who's got a zip code?
55104.
Yeah, let's go with there. There we go. Okay. There are no restaurants in 55104? That's not right. All right. Go to a music room.
Soul
Line dancing. There you go. All right. All sorts of fun stuff. Taekwondo event. Who doesn't want to go and get kicked in the face for fun before? All right. Where's your zip code? All right. Do one more. See what we get here. All right. Hey, we could have pizza pasta. There we go. All right. So that's kind of the high level. If you're bored, you go to your zip code and give you some options, and you can just kind of go from there. Kind of like these guys were saying, it's just for the adventurous types. Like, hey, let's just see what comes up and go. That's probably about it. Yeah.
Questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you want to team up as a group like us, and then we can call ourselves like neighbor beater and neighbor beater?
If we get the Taekwondo class, get to practicing, then it's neighbor beater.
Did you set up the call using anything other than zip code?
No, we didn't use open weather. We went like API XU, I think. We started with just zip code. Obviously, for future enhancements, we want to work in like some geolocation type stuff, especially like when it comes to the restaurants as well. We kind of look at it as a phase 2 right now. Yeah, it's just zip code.
I thought you said you used open weather map. And also, what issues did you run into using the weather APIs?
I mean, kind of similar to you, we weren't able to pull like, it was either pulling like 5 days or 16-day forecasts, and we were kind of having a hard time. Originally, we wanted to do like, you put in like a certain specified date, and then you could also pull the weather for that date. We were having a hard time like narrowing down how to grab specific dates, so we just went with like the day of and changed it to boredom meter instead of like of a long-term event planner.
All right. So that link at each individual event, that actually takes you to the event.
Yeah, it'll take you to the eventful page, which has the event there. So yeah, one of the other ideas we had was to kind of put a field in where you can kind of select what you wanted to do as far as events, like concerts or like theater, you know, or maybe something so it doesn't pop up with like T-ball.
We wanted to make it smart, so it knows like based on the weather, or like just indoor events, the outdoor events. Or something.
That's good. That's cool. Anybody else? No? Sweet. Thanks.
All right, guys, it's not a hot dog with food fight.
So, yep, name of our group is Not a Hot Dog. If you guys watch Silicon Valley, you understand. And this is our website. It's called Food Fights. My name is Gary.
I'm Dan.
I'm Curtis.
Chris. So to start off, I'm gonna kind of go into a user story so you guys can put your shoes, put yourself in the shoes of a potential user. Giant Diploma, he's a student at the U of M, he's an undergrad, and he just finished his night class. It's about 6 p.m. and he goes home and he's searching through his fridge and pantry because he's starving. Class didn't go too well, he's failed his last test, he's a little bit hangry right now. And so he's kind of exhausted and doesn't really want to think about food, but he's hungry at the same time. So he's kind of looking around his fridge, and next to his case of beer, he has a carton of eggs, some Parmesan cheese, and in his pantry, he's got a box of penne pasta, and that's all he's got. He has no idea what to do because, like me, he doesn't know how to cook at all. What he does then is he jumps on foodfight.com in order to solve this issue of his.
All right, so basically, when Johnny Diploma gets to our website, he will load in at this page, and he will hit refresh 15 times just to watch the buttons float into the middle of the page. And so the basic functionality of our website is you have two different search options. When you enter the website, you can either search by the name of a recipe, if you already know what you want to cook and just want to get certain ingredients lists and instructions, or you can search by what ingredients you have, which is the main functionality of what we're trying to accomplish. And so basically, what did you say? Eggs. So you can have eggs, spell it right, and it adds it to this little list here. Like pasta, you said penne, and then Parmesan. It adds to the list, and then he hits search, and it brings up 5 recipes, all with all the ingredients listed, the amount they need, and then the instructions of how to cook the recipe, and what ingredients that he does not already have, if he needs to go buy any more ingredients. And then at the bottom of the page, also links to a Google Maps API, which shows him where his nearest grocery store is, so he can go get any missing ingredients that doesn't already have. Then we also just had a basic clear function, which will clear out, not the search results, but it clears out the ingredients list if he mistyped an ingredient or wants to redo a new search. And so that's basically more or less how it works. Hand it over to Curtis.
All right, we'll go over kind of our design process here. So basically we use CSS animate just for the animate functions, and materialize for the accordion that you saw when it printed all the ingredients and recipes. We did use the Spoonify API, which we kind of ran into some issues, as what we'd be returning is it would allow for only 50 calls a day. And so what we were trying to use was start to use a Firebase database to start collecting whenever you put in, say Johnny puts in eggs, Parmesan cheese, and pasta. It would take that and store that specific list of 3 items in the database. The goal would be to incorporate and use that with favorite recipe or favorite ingredients, common ingredients, and sort of build up a database of our own. Again, we kind of use a few of the libraries: jQuery, Bootstrap, Materialize, and then the Google API, just looping that into the onSearch function. So I'll pass it on to Chris here.
So I'm going to talk about the future developments, things we want to add. Compare recipes by nutrients and see kind of which options are healthier. Well, there we go. And price the missing ingredients. We wanted to be able to link to a shopping cart So people could buy straight there, through potentially Amazon, Walmart, Target, Google Maps, and then adding search parameters for like dietary restrictions. If you have allergies, celiac, peanut allergy, or paleo diet, you want to limit carbs, fats, things like that. So kind of query it, just restrict the parameters even more.
So the other basic function on the website is the recipe search function, which works essentially the same, except you just type in a recipe and it pulls up whatever it pulls up. It'll pull up. In the case of lasagna, it only pulls up 4. It'll pull up 5 in every other case, but because of the way the query search works, there's a validation one, and we have that set to true. And so as long as it's a validated recipe and it has instructions, it has to pull it up. So there are only 4 lasagna recipes that fit all the query results in that particular API. I guess the other thing that we can talk about real quick is something we struggled with beyond the API itself is a little tricky. We actually do 2 separate calls for each search. So it does an initial search with all the ingredients, pulls that recipe ID, and then that recipe ID is popped into a second AJAX query to get a more in-depth list of things, ingredients, and directions. It's the only way we can get the directions, which means that each search is actually pulling 6 of our 50 API calls a day per search, and so you run out very, very quickly, which is why we kind of wanted to do the Firebase thing. And then some other things, just adding in, so if someone misspells something, or autofill things for search, or removing individual ingredients from the list, similar with the way we did the to-do list in class, that kind of stuff.
This is a pretty basic issue, but I struggled with for a while. Let's see, I fixed it, but getting the background image to cover the height of the window size. I struggled with that for a long time, but it was a matter of switching from using the term 100% to auto. I think it's all it took. Took me a while to figure that out.
And basically, we're kind of targeting recent college grads and also people who kind of say you've known how to cook for a while, but you kind of have your 3 main go-to things. And it's like, I have this recipe I can make for dinner, and this or this. Kind of as a new option to expand a repertoire of skills. So. Yes.
Oh, let's
Pretty cool. Is there a API out there that cost of food? So if you're someone that's on a budget, to take that budget and apply that budget to certain items that you could buy at the store that are budget?
Yeah, we looked at a few.
So this vernacular API that we use is actually pretty comprehensive. In their search things, there are, depending on the search you do, there are certain options where it does pull in a price, like an average price for all the ingredients. We just didn't incorporate that function really at all because we would. The idea I think originally was like linked to like an Amazon shopping cart where it's already pulled those ingredients for you and you could just order them. But yeah, sometimes there's actually an average price on there, and that would be something to look into for sure.
How did you approach mobile experience?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Good question. So I can demo it. This actually took me a long time too, but obviously you could potentially be doing this from like a grocery store when you're in the store. You know what you have. So obviously you want to make it mobile friendly. So I just incorporated media queries to kind of stack the 2 search functions there, and then I guess I'm just going to do it. Yeah, all right. Our API is limited to 50, so I just want Dan getting charged here. Oh, here we go. So you can still see that there's an issue with the covering the full page there, but let's do this on. When you search it, it's mobile responsive, so that everything comes out. And this is a really long recipe, so it kind of fills up quite a bit of a page. And the map itself is also responsive there. So we made sure to use media queries to make sure it's more responsive. There you go. That's it. Any other?
You guys do anything with maybe like ingredient substitute? So you have missing ingredients pop up. Maybe you have something else.
We did sort of talk about that a little bit. That was kind of something to integrate with Firebase. Is say you have a user who you could use their login info and say maybe they will substitute it. Dairyless cheese, or like something that, like, for dietary restrictions, you could say instead of this and use this input. So that was kind of like a use of having a user input for Firebase.
And so are these like entries also being saved in Firebase?
Yes. Yep.
Like Jerry's. Why is it pulling up Jerry's? That's my grocery store. So.
It's a Google on your computer.
Is that why?
Yeah.
Awesome. Second thing, second question. So you're storing locally the common ingredients. I like that. It's a really smart idea. What would be like an ongoing? Obviously, you couldn't keep that information static because the API is constantly changing. So what would be like your idea to make sure that that's current? The ingredients data.
The ingredients data? What do you mean specifically?
So you said you're kind of saving yourself an extra API call.
Yeah.
Right. So by doing that, you're storing it within Firebase, right?
Uh-huh.
So what, like, ongoing, that information will change,
Yeah.
right, on the API. So what would be like an ongoing process, maybe that would keep that up to date?
I mean, we could probably do like a check where I'll run through and so when it makes a search, I guess kind of thinking is in my head, you could run it through what it's already picked and overwrite any data that doesn't match, or even or something similar to that. Could be a way to keep the Firebase up to date. So like on each search, if they've searched these same ingredients before, look in the database and compare it to like the API to make sure that the ingredients still match, and then if they don't, overwrite the data and then pull from Firebase.
Yeah, so because it sounds like you'll have a pretty large local.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you covered it, but the store locator, is that part of the food-based API, or did you use a separate API for that integrated too?
That's Google.
That's
API. That's Google Map API.
All right, good job. We can take a break after this one, guys, if you want to. And then, but this will be our last one before we go on break. We good? Oh, yeah. And what's your yeah, that's one way to do it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, besides, yeah, because you're extending it. Yes.
All right, guys, this is a food bar with trip planner.
Hello? Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, so we're a trip planner. My name is Zach.
Jerry.
T.
Hello, I'm Sujata.
And so for our app, essentially what we wanted to do was create a trip planning app. It's going to be using Google Maps API. I actually kind of want to change the name of it. I want to change it to yet another map app, or Yamma for short. Yamma is actually a ancient god of death, and we're all going to die one day. So anyway, so essentially what our app is going to do is we're going to give it a starting address, and what it will do is plot the course of our trip on a map. It'll keep track of the stops that we've made. And it will also give you an estimate of the cost of your trip using rideshare, specifically Lyft in this instance. And finally, it will also give you the weather. So our original inspiration for this app was to do a bar crawl app. I think I just figured after 2 weeks of working on this, that would be the thing I would most need at the time. And I was right. And so from this idea, we decided to include rideshare as part of our app as well, because obviously if you're doing a bar crawl, you don't want to be driving. And so the most convenient way would be to do rideshare. So, and that became an integral part of our application overall. So there were 5 components for our MVP. The map interface that would show the users and, or not the users, but the points where the users has put on the map. A list of recommendations of nearby places sourced from Google that would tell you the nearby areas where you could go next on your stop. An itinerary which lists basically all the stops that you've made so far. A summary of the total, which would include the distance and the estimated Lyft cost for the trip overall, and also the weather, so you can decide whether or not you want to stay in or go out. Yeah, so I'll hand it over to Tina, who will talk a little bit about the user interface that we designed.
Yeah, so my focus on the user interface, nothing fancy. I really just wanted it to be as readable as possible. This was all done in Bootstrap, and the important thing was I was creating all the classes ID for these guys to be using with the logic. And yeah, so there's 3 other boxes that are hidden in here. So the JS will interact with that and make those appear when our address is added and the recommendations pop up. Those boxes will come up. I originally wanted to have a video background, and I kind of got that working, but it just stayed on top of everything. And so it's gonna take me more time than I had to get that working. So we settled with this, but in the future, I'd like to be able to have that in the background and potentially maybe flood the background with the image of the city you're currently in. That'd be something kind of cool to do. And I'll give it over to Sujata to talk about the weather API.
I'm going to talk about the weather. Actually, the trip planner application shows the current weather of the destination, like a real feel, temperature, and the weather might be mostly cloudy or sunny. So we basically used in this application 3 APIs. One is Lyft API, other one is Google API, the third one is Aries Weather API, which was used by me. Actually, the problem I faced while developing this application is initially I developed with the city, state, zip code by using in the Ajax query. But when I discussed with the team, they want me to develop using latitude and longitude. So what I did is when I checked with the Ajax query, I didn't get it. I got a new technology in that particular Aries Weather API. It's not a new technology. It's basically a JavaScript which was added in the Aries Weather, which exactly tells about the rich set of client functionality. So for in that, there is a fetch method which exactly binds the Ajax query to pull the records from API. So based, sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. So we receive the response as an object. So here, another while it passes it will give the object as a response. What is the value of the weather temperature, and real field. If it is not passed, it also shows the error message. So this method handles the error message too. So this one also give the response as an error message. That's it. I pass it to Jerry.
Good morning. Yes, my name is Jerry, and I took care of the Lyft application. And for interfacing with Lyft, you need to have a valid account with Lyft. And I registered, and I took it one step further, and I'm actually a driver. And I do commute from the northwest corner of the cities to past the airport. So literally, maybe someday I could snag a rider going to the airport. So I'm paid for this class, you know. But anyway, so I do need a valid token, and that takes us to OAuth 2. It's a technology of authentication. It's a series of 6 calls, and it's embedded. You get this token, and so that kind of took me off a path into. I wasted a couple days on that, just studying and whatnot. But I did get the API to work, and I got results back. And then I turned it back over to Zach, who did all of our little components, and he stitched it all into our working application. Back to Zach.
Yeah, so I don't have a lot of time, so I'll just do a really quick demo. All right, so I just have an address preloaded in here, and I submit it. And so it'll initiate a map, and it'll place a red flag at that address location that I put in. Surrounding the flag are these green check marks, and these are the recommendations. These are taken from Google Places, and they're also listed right here in a list down here. You see you got what number recommendation it is, what the name of the place is, the address, and the general rating. That also comes from Google. And if you hover over the check marks, you can also see the name of the place as well. Unfortunately, I would have liked to do info boxes if I had more time, but I saw the first group had that, and I thought that was a really cool idea, but didn't have time to do that. So basically what the user would do is they would see these recommendations. Let's say you want to go to the 508 bar and restaurant here. It will take that and will add it to your route and calculate the distance from there and the estimated lift cost, which in this case is $8. And then it will also pan the map to center on this location you put. It will add a new marker and suggest 10 more places around it. So you can just keep continuing to add different places. It'll just keep recommending them. Buffalo Wild Wings, sure. And then at the bottom here, you have your total stops that you've made, the total distance of the trip, and how much it's estimated to cost as well. And you also have the weather from when you first put in your home address. It'll tell you the high temperature, low temperature, and what the weather is generally. That's all right.
Questions?
I was ready to go to break.
Why didn't you round the total miles?
Floats, I don't know.
So when going through, because I know a bunch of us attempted to do, a bunch of groups attempted to do OAuth 2 within jobs. So what are some of the stuff that, what are some of the challenges you ran into, and how do you overcome them with using OAuth 2?
yeah, OAuth 2 is really a thing to take on, and I was, I'm a newbie at it, and so I had to register to Lyft, and that gave me a series of codes that I manually kind of interacted with to get the token. And that's the downside of where my GitHub page is at, because now this token is out there. It's only good for 1 day. And then, like my GitHub IO page, it's like, well, if I go there tomorrow, that app is going to be broken. But that topic is huge, and you could really probably specialize and be almost an expert in that, So if you go to Spotify and you're kind of a new user, and it's like, okay, you can log in with your Facebook credentials. It's the weirdest thing, but it seems to work. And but it's all about passwords and security at the HTTP level. And that answers your question. It's a big topic. Any other questions? Awesome. Thank you. All right, good job.
How long we usually do at lunch? Or do we do it a half hour? Hour? Do an hour? Don't do an hour. Nice. 45? Is it half hour? I think we get a half hour. Is that right? Yeah. We'll do a half hour then. All right, I'll see you guys back in at 12:15. All right. I was there.
I was like, I was hoping to go originally. Jason, how you feeling?
Good shape. How are you two feeling? Yeah, I mean, the other team.
Yeah, so.
I decided I'm not going to be there. Yeah.
The other thing I was thinking, do you have, because I don't want to save the demo for the last part. Just move it out. That's what I was thinking. Because it gets yeah. So maybe you go first, then Howie, then me, then Jason, or whatever.
Yeah. Yes. It's kind of hard to because I was watching.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That's going to be a way better.
like last year. It's like something that's what maybe they're not people are going to wedding. Yeah, nobody's like, yeah.
You must have done something where you were trying to attend a prize. That's a nice day.
This guy.
Ethan was okay.
I like the bicycle.
Well, that's what I had like the salmon. They just look like celery or something like that.
That's nice.
I will say baby food. Like we're buying baby foods from Target. They're like apple, like cardamom. Like not my favorite, but I love someone on their team or someone else spammed our API. Well, I switched it over to the API and get requests. But the way I'm using it is on query. Every click of a button is like 9 text requests. And then if you get it this morning, pull it up. In there, I can reach 50 minutes. Already. What the hell? So I push it over. And then I don't know if it's like just definitely would never use Foursquare.
No. It depends on your audience. Like we knew our audience was so we couldn't act like that. Your audience is big. Then because you can't do that on the I think it's design customer experience. Human-centric design.
Convert an API, opens up the browser, takes the information.
Just doing the work.
I have a hard time focusing here because now I want to think. So then I start to focus on and see how they work. But that's not really heading towards. I get curious and I keep exploring because I want to build something. Oh, it could be. I didn't do it this time. But we have time frame. Not that I haven't science. They really are limited. So, but it's amazing how people did.
I know. You just change your context.
I wish I could go.
Weren't you saying something?
Yeah, I was looking at outside. I just Googled like world's best portfolio. No, I was just trying to get I saw one for $49. Oh, I saw one selling 80 and with like pages and like fancy stuff. Floating with that, no idea what it is. Like $49. Like I think 40 was the same going on.
Yeah.
Just for like whole Yeah, but we're doing that. We're still doing it. Yeah, we're which is what because they want to learn. I think the lies have.
Yeah, right. Oh, you should do the whole career like that. And then it'll be
we're over half. We've done that year. How was it?
It was good. We played well, but we lost 1-0. And it's a fun.
Oh, yeah.
So that's
Staying better. So much better. They got foreign players now. So there are money and getting there.
There's no salary. So
for example, that's what Minnesota United and the stadium 2 times over.
but it's, yeah, that's what's so crazy. You're that star. I mean, it's the biggest sport. So
you can make like way more than basketball players.
Like basketball salaries skyrocketed. Like over the past
5-6 players. But you guys still make so much more.
Yeah. They have basketball. That's like if you were to look at the makeup of players. And today versus 10 years ago, you see way more international players. You see, China that's really starting to kind of, build up. Like basketball has a lot of and soccer does stuff too, especially in the press. It is a sport that is in popularity, right? Because you go 5 years ago, you've been playing the stadium and have.
Oh, yeah.
So it's pretty cool how it's kind of gaining popularity. Sure, how many one said the building soccer stadium.
Yeah, I saw your sign on the Snelling Avenue. Massive.
That was so cool.
Literally, last year there was nothing, and now it's all the second message.
Yeah, that's kind of started.
Like kill messages over.
Picture that use drone technology.
I think this is Microsoft has a very technology. This actually automatically kind of put some bars like bumpers.
Oh, wait, no.
And then it identifies from like services, and then it just creates.
Because I know that, I'm not sure what the technology is.
Yeah.
Because I know
This definitely looks nice. Alright, I'll go ahead
a visual layout of Rihanna or
Maybe the importance of direct volume is because he is not exactly a tech. He is Watson on the other hand. I assume both should go
but it's they can actually start from technology. But I think that'd be pretty beautiful.
Yeah, I think you can just hire a 3D company and just give them the blueprint of the stadium and just have them render it. That could be what easier with time to roll on. Technology doesn't exist, right?
Yeah, and usually that technology is just for more general projects like that, right?
Survey and all that.
Yeah, survey. It's not getting down to that. That probably turn that map out.
Oh, right. I'm looking forward to there's a game on 4th of July, so I can take my son and see fireworks at the stadium and watch a game.
Yeah, I think it's very
What do you see?
Oh, there is. Oh,
From 6 to 7 years, something like that. It's called the Freedom Game. And 7 days play against Portugal.
Yeah.
He can say. He doesn't get very tired. Or the barbecue in the morning.
We got the soccer.
Yeah, watching Argentina fans, Argentina fans, I'm surprised to see Russia looking a pretty damn good country. You realize? Like cities that are
Very good.
No, I'm thinking gateway. Oh, yeah, that's a yeah, that's the one I was thinking. Yeah, it's gateway. I like. Yeah, he's good.
Oh, that it is.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I'm hoping they're doing 8 years.
They might have some I'm sure by 8 years we'll get back my friendly relationship. We're hosting it together. I have a ball.
Well, yeah, actually,
hopefully it is here. Unless the rules change. And we have president for life.
Yeah.
Then people will not be the biggest problem we have.
All right, I'm gonna walk outside.
Yeah, my girlfriend, I gotta go watch it. But
I'll drive. It's a free ride.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Why is that? Why is it there? It was so different. You get to hear, how you get here.
I've been in the
Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
He said after that is applications on introduce
I really like that. Seriously.
It's out of focus. It's fine. It's out of focus. Small version. So do you just straight up pull out your motherboard?
It's just.
They'll like assess and be like, my sister does always right away you get my mom.
Yeah, I remember like art. I got a lot their Orion people. Oh yeah, the mechanical. Good type of experience. Yeah, I'm not sure what it's called. It's kind of got the feel. My first one. Yeah. Yeah, here. Yeah. Turning direction. Kind of fun when you're writing.
All right, guys, ready? Want to do a big power clap? Yeah. So I wish I had a lunch meme. I was trying to get like lunch memes together, and I didn't have one today. I feel like something's missing. Yeah. So I guess I'm ready to welcome up the next group. Let's welcome up HHJSS in the road less traveled. You guys want to use your own machine, right?
Yep.
Apparently.
Hi, we're going to start off with introductions first. My name is Hamdi.
I am Jason.
I'm Sabine.
Holly.
And our application is for adventurous people that want to travel to places that are less traveled. And our application asks users what they like to do or what they want to do. For example, hiking, skiing, if they want to go to the beach, sightseeing. There's 6 options that they can choose from. And once the user picks what they want to do, and we give them a location that they can travel to, and hotels, restaurants, attractions, and we also give them the weather for that day. And once we give them places like restaurants and hotels, we also give them the ratings of those places. And our motivation was to give users and a place that has, like a place that they can go to that kind of has a lot of things, so they're not traveling to multiple places just to find hotel, things to do there, and restaurants. That's kind of the motivation behind it.
And the design aspect of it, we use Bootstrap, Materialize,
to design the page layout. We also have some external CSS. We have Yelp to display the places to stay or restaurants to eat. We also have a form to display the recent visitors, so they can just enter information and see their names there. We also have a weather display. It only displays the current weather. We don't have a 7-day forecast. We tried that with a widget, but we just want to make it adventurous, not show you the whole thing. I think that's pretty much all about it for the display, for the UI.
So I will be demoing through the app. So right here on this corner, we have a table which will ask you to put your user data inside as everybody else. We also like to collect your data. So you can write your name, your location, and then submit, and this whole thing is being stored in Firebase. The main thing we wanted to do with this is to have to know where people are coming to this location and having to know that where the visitors are from. Also, when we go to this Let's Go places, it will show you different options. If you want to go sightseeing, it will show you another city. This is all pre-picked things. So we just wanted to remain in the scope of our project. The bottom information is coming from Yelp API. It is showing you 3 different restaurants. When you click on it, it will take you to the whole Yelp page. We also wanted to incorporate some kind of map, but the Google Map, Yelp API gave us enough of our problems to face, so we didn't want to go into the Google one. So we just stick to the Yelp, and then we have lodging and different attractions here. Also, when you click on one of the places, it gives you the current weather right here. We wanted to show the forecast, but that was a little bit more complicated. So let me just go through all of the cities we have here. So this is the beach. And we have hiking, and then we have history, and skiing, and all of them shows different places that you can go eat, stay, and enjoy.
So we use Firebase for the visitor pin. Just simple little thing to. Oh, remember what the number was. Okay. It's just a simple little thing to get information from users and something kind of fun. I'd like to tweak that a little bit so that when somebody on it loads, it'll show 4, but as people continue to fill it out, it just builds. So that'd be a problem I'd like to address at some point. We use Open Weather Map. That worked great. The only little trick there was converting Kelvin to Celsius and Fahrenheit, but that was pretty minor. And the Yelp Business Search API, we ran into the Chorus cross-origin resource sharing issue there. We need to get some work to get that resolved. And we, what else we do? The original search URL that we were using was incorrect, so no matter what we searched on, we got the same results back. So that took a little while to sort that out. The technologies were JavaScript, jQuery, Ajax, Bootstrap. We used Popper for the drop-down menu, and Materialize. Yeah. Some of the things I would like to fix, if we had more time, I'd like to add an image carousel. One of the things I didn't like about the weather app is it shows degrees. I'd like to convert that to north, south, east, west, maybe friendly. And
So all of us were a little too ambitious and we all wanted to add things to it. I wanted to add a little bit of social feed into it somehow, using Instagram or Facebook check-in or some kind of thing, but obviously we had just 1 week. So those are the things that we will try to incorporate in the future, and there are a few things that they would like to.
One of the first things we ran into, because we kind of knew that we wanted to use Yelp kind of right away, but then once we came up with cities that we wanted to kind of surprise our users with, we noticed that Yelp didn't have a lot of information for those categories. So we kind of had to see what cities Yelp had a lot of information for, and then just kind of go based off of that. So I would love to our website to kind of get cities that are outside of the US and
more international.
And from the UI perspective, we would like to obviously make it look better, make it more interactive, maybe add some animation. Yeah. So I think it could look better.
It's functional.
It's functional, yeah. And basically, just to add on the innovation, we just want to make travel simple, like based on what you like to do, what kind of activities you're interested in, instead of where you would like to go.
Questions?
How did you get West Bend, Iowa? Or have any of you?
Oh no, we actually started off either we need to go to the most visited places like New York or Los Angeles, or we need to go to the least traveled places. So we just Google searched it, and some of the most interesting places that we figured out was.
I've been there several times. My grandma.
So you are an adventurous person. Yeah.
So when you click on the different topics up top, each time you click on it, does it bring a new location?
Yes. Yeah, it does. So, but they are all predefined. It's not every time you're not getting a new location. Just every time when you click on the page, it will show Mardale Beach, South Carolina.
You can scope under control.
Yeah.
So how many APIs you used?
Sorry?
How many APIs?
Two. So weather and yeah.
So what's the intent behind the tell us about yourself?
It was basically, so we wanted to have, so when you go to a tourism website, you can check in like where people are coming into our city, things like that. So you want to explain it better? That was
Just a basic idea of pinning yourself to the site so you can see it. It's just something simple, something kind of fun.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
No, I just decided to just walk on like really quick, but yeah, but if you have a question,
Awesome. Yeah.
our home page is called home.html as an index. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, shit. SEAL team. Full fitness.
All right, guys. This is SEAL Team 6, and the application is Full Fitness. SEAL Team 5.
Is this working?
Yep.
Okay. My name's Randy. And as he said, we're Full Fitness. And we basically created an app where you can track your nutrition and get some videos for working out and stuff like that. You'll log in, create a goal page for what your goal is for each week. If you want to lose or gain weight, and we track it from there.
Hi, my name is Abdullahi. So the whole point of our project is we want to see a lot of people walking around with six packs and abs. So I'm working with how to use our website. So I worked on my login sign up page, and I used 5 ways to do it, 5 authentications. So first of all, we want our client to sign up, and let me see. Yeah, it's gonna ask you for your email, and then you just put your email in there, and then you say. And then it's gonna ask you for your first and last name if you are a new user, and then you just put your first name in there. And then password. And then it's gonna save everything on the Firebase database. So just save it. Let's see.
But yeah, use the same one that you just signed up with.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot the password. All right.
So it isn't actually doing something behind the scenes.
Oh yeah,
It's checking.
yeah, it worked. So so this is our page.
Hi, my name is Mugarsa. I made the goals page. Here, the user will put their info. Say they want to lose or gain weight. We made this per week. We made it. We wanted to be easy. So in my case, like gain weight. So, age. Male. Inches. And submit. And this will take you to the next page where.
Wait, if you put that you're 171 inches, so that's gonna throw off the numbers a little bit. That means you're about twice my height. More than.
Anyways, I'll have to explain.
All right, so let's get well, yeah, we'll just do the demo here. So assuming you're twice my height, I found a formula online that's based on those goal parameters you can use to get a reasonable measure of how many calories you should take in per day, given that goal. So we compute that. And then display that here on your personal page, as well as USDA recommendations based on those same factors about protein, daily fat intake, carbs, sugar, and then exercise. How many minutes of exercise? So then once that's been established, the app allows you to log your nutrition through each day to see how you're doing against those goals. So this is tapping into 2 different USDA APIs. So first you search for a food. So let's say I want to try to have a healthy snack. So let's do carrots without the D. So we ping the USDA website and it gives us a gargantuan list of every like raw and packaged product that contains the word carrot, which can be a bit to sort through. But thankfully, towards the top of the list, we have raw carrots. So now the app asks us, okay, what quantity? And the API returns like what would be a commonly used quantity for that particular item. So let's say we want 1 cup of carrots. And then let's say we want maybe some celery for our healthy snack. Celery, maybe just a half cup of that because it's kind of yucky. And then let's see, we have to make this taste good somehow. So let's say, I don't know, ranch dressing. Let's see what that gives us. Ooh, Marzetti, that's good stuff. Nobody does light. Yuck. 2 tablespoons of that. That ought to get the fat column going. There we go. So then once we say we're done with whatever we want to enter, so this is all being logged in Firebase, so you don't have to remember at the end of the day what you ate for the whole day. You can come back and add to it later on. It's cumulative. But then on your personal homepage, it'll show a chart in terms of percentages as to how much of each of these goals, how far towards each of these goals you've gone. So clearly, my ranch indulgence here means that I probably need to cut out on fat for the rest of the day due to my poor choice there. So yeah, so that's the nutrition piece, and then the workout piece.
Once you do your personal goals and nutrition, I guess it's time for you to hit the weights. That's where you're gonna come to workouts. And this is where you're gonna find all the videos you need to help you with your workouts. If you want abs, chest, shoulders, etc. My initial goal was to do API YouTube, where you will have a search button and you can search all the exercises you want. If you don't like whatever you see here, and I think that version is going to come out next summer. But for now, that's what you have.
Yeah, I think that sums it up. Yes, sir.
So do you randomly grab those workout videos from YouTube, or are they set
No,
videos?
those are the same videos you can see it.
Another question?
So for logging in the application, say if like you're worried about privacy, how do you guys deal with that? For security? Yeah, security. Yeah, I feel like Google took care of it. That Five is part of it. So if in case you forget your password, they can send you an email that says you forget your password. I feel like Google will take care of it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, everything's being logged in Firebase. And so right now, for expediency of development, we do have public settings. But since we're using their authentication, we could lock that down and make it private. And then only people who have an actual Google authenticated account, it doesn't have to be a Google account, but we'll be able to see that data then.
So,
because I own the database.
Yeah, so I assume that you guys can't tap into a user's account and look at their.
Oh no, I totally can.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to get.
So only the administrator of the site can.
Okay.
So you're storing the Google ID
What?
of the user, and how are you interfacing with the user with Google, with the OS?
So the Firebase UI takes care of that completely. So they once you log in and sign up,
it returns a token that's encrypted, whatever, like we can't even see what's there. But each page that you go to on our site, the very first thing it does is grabs an event that Firebase queues to each page. That's the browser, they actually have the browser queue an event that contains your login information. And so then we just use that to key into the database for that particular user. Yes, sir.
For the YouTube videos, what are the user prompts to find videos that are tailored to whatever their workout needs are?
So that was the goal. We didn't get that far on the exercise page. Right now, the exercise page is static. Any other questions?
So I'm going to copy and paste this code and say this, make a little offer at a lifetime. I'll be able, you guys don't mind, right? All right, guys, please welcome Tone Deaf with Global Sounds Project. Two of the members are missing today. They're both out, so it's just gonna be them two presenting.
And our time starts now, right? Not when he was talking.
No, I'm still gonna talk.
Hello. So yeah, our group name is Tone Deaf, and it's the Tone Deaf half is here, which is self-diagnosed, which the other two might or might not have approved of, but they're not here. So I'm Tashi.
I'm here.
And we don't have the other two, but this is Gabby Cheese, and this is Abhi. Abhinav Sharma. So they're both here in spirit.
Abhi is actually playing a concert right now, so the picture is.
Yeah. So the reason we chose this project or this idea was because it was sort of Abhi's thing. He was like, oh, it'd be really cool if we had a way to find music based by region, so we can explore different kinds of music rather than just focusing on who the popular artists are. So we decided to create an app that would let us explore music by region. And as we do that, we will get to explore different types of music, listen to them, and then go further with it if we want to use other actual functioning fancy websites to listen more and buy it off, I don't know, iTunes or whatnot. So that being said, Pia's going to talk more about the steps.
Well, the first step was to figure out if we could work together. And what we did is brainstorm of what everybody's skills were. And so we wanted, because of my geographic background, to do some mapping. And basically it was to map anything you want using geolocation and points, and from those points to get some information. So I was more like in the wine business, but Tashi was so excited about music that we left the wine and so on. Then we started looking for API. Sorry, the API is the French way. And that's where we ran into the first trouble, because the number of API to process in such a short time is way overwhelming. And then after that, we found out that we had Google Map, we had Last.fm and YouTube, where we could, and MaxMind, where we could retrieve the information. So MaxMind provided us the list of 246 countries. And then Google Map, the background of the map, and the API that were necessary to show the map. And then eventually, we used Firebase on which we loaded the list of countries and the music. And then we divided the tasks. So I would do the map, Tashi would do the some of the design, and two gentlemen who are not here worked on some of the JavaScript code. And eventually we pushed it together and it worked.
So to show you guys the demo, the way we built it was with the time constraints. We've listed out, like it opens up here. So you have two options. Either you can put in the name of a country, and we did use Firebase because we narrowed down our search just to 20 countries, and it's saved in Firebase, so it pulls those countries rather than the 200 plus that Pierre just mentioned, because we didn't find any APIs that would give us that information region-based. So that being said, that is not what I typed. So let's say in Abhi's Ona, we'll do India. So it will pull up 5 artists that were randomly selected on the site. So I can also do the same if I'm trying to explore by country. And if you hover over the map, it will tell you which country it is. It's pretty small, but it was pretty exciting when that worked. So let's say South Korea is really big, right? And you might have heard a lot about South Korean music, but you want to explore that further. So we go to South Korea, and I say, IU sounds interesting as a name, so I'll go click IU. So what it does, it loads on the other panel, gives you a bio. You can read further about it through the, read more on the link. Gives you tags, exactly what kind of music do these artists perform, because not everyone's doing pop, some do rock, etc., whatever genres that you can think of. And then we have similar artists. If you think IU is like extremely cool and you're really into young girls singing about, that sounded slightly creepy. It's good that Pierre didn't say that, it was me. But we can also explore other K-pop girl bands. It's usually kids who like them a lot, so I wouldn't judge you, maybe a little bit. So the way of watching, so we were first planning the MVP just to list the songs because we wasn't sure how it was going to embed. We were looking at SoundCloud a lot, and SoundCloud lets you embed the players in your app, but they're not giving out APIs anymore, or as Pierre calls them, APIs, because they're just not very good with documentation and the way the APIs are functioning. So we decided to go with YouTube. YouTube also lets you explore a lot of the artists who are not very popular in the US or might not be very easily found on Last.fm, whatnot. So in this case, just checking the time. So you can either play it in here, and it's kind of smaller, or you can just click on the link, and it just plays that particular video. And that's what I said about young girls liking it. So in the case you want to go back and see, oh, what other music is available, instead of having to reload the page, made the tab, and then I can say India. Somehow it got broken, so we have Pakistan, and no one saw that. Let's just ignore that. So that being said, it's still loading. We did pretty basic footers. These are all actually mine, so if you guys click on them, you'll end up on my social media. Please go ahead and explore if you want. And
well, for the future, obviously the project can be expanded indefinitely. We worked with 20 countries, but there is 246 possible countries given by MinMax. And the idea would be either to click the country or to click the artist and find out where they are. But we have plenty enough like that. So if you have any question, we will be happy to answer them.
And this is actually based not with the idea of making a profit. Jag really inspired the idea, like, you know, we could potentially set up authentication, save that data, sell that data, disclose that, and then make profit. So that could potentially be another future idea if we were trying to make money off it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Any questions?
So actually, clicked on this stuff. I really like the original design. That was like. Anyways, my question is, so how do you pull in those artists? Is it just random? Are you going to move on to independent artists, or?
They are random in the fact that they're just the first 5 artists that Google generated when I searched those countries and particular artists. So they could be, there's like Beethoven for Germany, and there's some wrapper for some particular country. So I was going to show Nigeria because I was talking to Tunji about WizKid, and that's one of the bigger rappers that's popping up
from Nigeria. But at the moment, it's starting with the 5 randomly selected artists, and the idea would be potentially to go crazy and have an API actually with all the artist names. And thank you for your feedback about the design.
Comment noted.
Yeah, not to take too much time, but checked it out yesterday. The design was pretty awesome. It's just a little bit cleaner, but really cool stuff.
So, can you show us another country? I just wanted to see it again. No, it's been recoded. So on this page here, did you just load? How many times did you go to the? Or how many APIs have you used right here? Just the one?
We have YouTube.
We have YouTube, we have last.fm, and then we're using the Firebase to pull the information based on the countries. And the way the map works is we have markers for the latitude and longitudes, and when you click on it, it takes it, stringifies the name from our object that we have built as the country data that Pierre just mentioned about. And then it takes that, compares it to the database names, and says, okay, these are the same countries. Now let's do the search function and pull the actual 5 artists and then list them. So you can do it either from the search section, or you can also do it from the map, so that both would be functional.
Cool. So how many YouTube calls then are happening here?
I limited it to 7 because 10 was just pretty long, but the idea was 10 because we were thinking of songs just with the actual players rather than videos. So it's 7 at the moment.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, individual calls to the API?
For the YouTube, every time an artist name is clicked on, it sends a 7 limit query for 7 videos for that artist.
Oh, gotcha.
Randomly.
And for the list of countries, it came as a CSV file. So we had to, with the help of Luis, work on the Gnode to transform that into a JSON file that was uploaded to Firebase. And technically, there should be because right now we only have 20 countries. 21 countries. So with an if statement, if the country exists, upload the markers. If the country, we don't have any information yet, do not upload the marker. And this, unfortunately, we run out of time to implement that. Any other question? Yeah.
Is the idea to have artists from that country or just popular music?
5 artists from that country, and then if you want to explore further, you can go off, and actually it takes you to last.fm to load those artists. So if you want to read the bio, if you want to explore music of that particular genre, but from, let's say, Nigeria, pull up artists for that. But that goes external to other websites.
Actually, that could be one feature in the future on that website, is to be able to identify the type of music you want, the classical, country.
Those were some of our extra goals, to have an authentication where you can put in your favorites. And that way, every time you come back, whether it's session-based or Fire-based, but when you log in, it still remembers what kind of music you liked, and then it pulls up that. And then it was a week-long project, so.
Yeah. Any more questions? Cool. Awesome. Great.
Yeah.
I will definitely check that out. Yeah, I don't know if I agree with saving the name.
It's our favorite artist because it's used so well to explore new music.
So if they wanted to revisit, if we were going to do authentication, so that's what we were talking about, at least Abby wanted to be fancier and have that all saved.
Sure.
But again, it was the idea of we just want them to visit, explore, and then move on rather than come back. Because you said, why would someone log back every time?
Sure.
If we didn't have that call, there was nothing that was intrinsically so exciting and unique that they would come back.
Right.
Yeah, so it's more like an explorer kind of thing.
That makes sense. Right. Well, there you go. Sure. Yeah, exactly. That's a good one. you guys want to see that.
All right, guys, this is a crawl space team with crawl space project.
All right, just a quick show of hands. How many out there like to do pub crawls, go out with friends, socialize, all that good stuff? Great. You guys are our target audience. Who else likes to wake up the next morning safe and secure? In a bed somewhere, at least. Awesome. You're definitely our audience. Okay, so the goal of Crawl Space is to provide a resource for users to search a given area. One other thing I'm going to ask you guys to use your imagination right now. Pretend we're in San Francisco, because that's where the crime API worked. So we're going to just picture that Golden Gate Bridge right now. So this app is designed to provide you the information to type in a pub or a bar, and then also look up the crime stats for that given area of that pub and that bar, so you can know your surroundings, be aware of your environment. The MVP is, well, as of this moment, allows users to search Google Maps API and San Francisco Crime Stats API for pubs and bars, and also criminal statistics within San Francisco. We also use Firebase to record the bars and pubs searched to provide the user with a record or a history for reference in case things got a little blurry from the night before. Maybe they left their ID or their phone somewhere. They can go back and retrace their steps. That's all I have. I'm going to pass it off to Meng, and he's going to talk about the front end.
Okay, so getting the front end out of the way. So this is pretty much how our application looks like. We decided to go with like a kind of forensic looking background with the binary numbers in a blue neutral like background here. At the top here, then we have a search bar here, so that we can type down whatever you want. Like say, since we're in San Francisco, then we'll type down things inside San Francisco here, and then the Google God, like how I want to refer to it, will populate and try to guess out what you want to search for. Then over here towards the right over here will be the search local area, so then we can go ahead and search the next destination that we want to go to and the amount of time that takes to go over there. These are required fields, so then the submit button will not enable until we have all these fields filled in. So now we have the submit button enabled, and then down over here will be our map. So this is pretty much where we can see our location and our destination, our current location, and everything like that. And over here towards the right will be the list of information, the history that we've looked for in the past. All this data information is being stored onto Firebase. So pretty much like when we go back up here, search local, we fill this area in, and then we'll click the submit button, and then it'll put that information up to Firebase. The application will bring that data back down and display it on here. So that way we can have some history on what we already looked for. In the future, then what we plan to also do is maybe I've been experimenting with the authentication already. So then perhaps like someone could just log in and they can have their own history, because at the time of this version, then anybody can see all of this, and that's not what we want to happen. Also, we do have the responsive too, because we're not going to be taking a laptop out to like the bar or anything like that. So then our intentions are to have people carrying their phones. So then the application will look something like this instead. So then we'll have everything, main functionality is here. The map will be here, and the list of information will be over here at the bottom here. Search bar has moved onto the map over here as well, just to kind of like put it into the map just to make it look better like that. And yes, and this is pretty much all that I have to cover for the front end here. So I'll pass it on to Hassan, who will speak more about the back end.
Yeah. So we split it up. Actually, I'll just talk about how we planned on doing everything. We split it up. Front end, Meng took. Justin helped him a little bit. Me and Justin also searched for the APIs. I'll tell you about that in a second. And Brady and I also worked on the back end a little bit. So the hardest part about this was just searching for an API that worked. We're trying to find a crime API or sex offender API, and it was really hard. Like Justin had to email these guys and didn't even reply back. We had Your Mapper was an API we used, Crime Stats API, a Family Watchdog API. None of those worked until Brady found a San Francisco Crime API, which is why we have to stay with San Francisco. Yeah, so Google Maps, you can search your location, and the crime data API searches the crimes around you or around the pub that you're gonna go to. And so yeah, I also worked on appending the map and the search. Google has a pretty nifty code that you. Here's Brady with the backend.
Cool. There, that seems a good spot. Okay, so we're gonna search for bar none, because I'm showing how it works, I guess. It kind of, somewhat works. And it moves to where bar none is, and as you can see, the markers for crime are currently invisible, just like any potential criminals. We feel this builds a sense of realism, so you're always looking over your shoulder. We got to post it to the markers list, but they won't appear on the map for whatever reason. So that's a work in progress beneath MVP. But what else? Yeah. I guess the last day I just really worked on cleaning up a lot of that code because as Hassan mentioned, we used like 6 different APIs for crime. None of them worked to the last one. So I had to, clean up a lot of stuff, and Google was fun. So I ended up cutting out about 200 lines of code. And then future potential features. There's a lot of room for growth with this. We could extend to other city data. I know there's more out there. It would be great if we could use one of the crime APIs that gets like the whole country. Adjusting pathing would be awesome too. So if you search it and based on the crimes that appear, the pathing would move so you can walk more safely to your next pub. What else? Oh, and then we recently thought about this, but clicking on these previous places would then bring the map back to those. And that's something that we could pretty easily add, but we just didn't think of that yet. So yeah, that's crawl space. Any questions?
So one of my favorite apps to use with is Julia, and it has a really good map on it. If you're looking at anything like that, then you can really.
I don't remember if we looked at Trulia. I don't think they had an API, but I don't remember.
Yeah, it's a real estate website, but it's if you want to search an area you're in, it's sometimes the easiest way to find it. And it'll tell you what kind of crime.
Yeah. And there were a lot of cool ones too. Spot Crime is really great. They have an API that we just couldn't get working. It's another one that had really cool website that also had an API that we just couldn't get working. So maybe in the future, Bureau Mapper. That's another. It's a lot of crime websites that have APIs that just didn't end up working.
Talk a little bit about like what sort of thinking behind what is safe and what's not. Like, how are you using the crime data to determine that? Is it just incident rate or type of crime? What's the algorithm?
It was type of crime was our intention. We wanted to go with, obviously the big ones like assault or robbery, murder. Basically the ones where you want to avoid those areas for sure. I mean, we weren't looking at like car vandalism or graffiti or anything like that. We were trying to get to the point where it would select just a few indicators.
So this is what I limited it to 10 because we were searching because we were using the free version of the API right now. And I didn't want it to overload and get kicked out. But yeah, just we could limit it pretty easily by judging by category. I don't think we've done really much of that right now. But we just return the crimes from the San Francisco site. Mostly we use the later information that gives latitude and longitude, so they should pin right.
So you create a feature where you could decide what kind of crime you're okay with?
Yeah. Assault, great. No, we're not worried about assault. No.
More questions? Good job, man.
Yeah, just but yeah, it's again within the function. So it's supposed to be a fun.
It's hard to verbalize that.
Yeah.
What's the
college life?
Oh, college. All right, guys, this is call me maybe in a function.
Yeah, it's in a function. It's supposed to be a
call me maybe. It's a pun. It's good. it's the college life.
All right, so we'll just introduce ourselves as we pass it along. So I'm Phil, and this is the intro. So picture this. The decision for you to pick your college is just around the corner, and you have no idea where to go. You want to make a decision based on, you don't want to make a decision based on just where your parents want you where to go. You want to have fun, and you want to create memories. As a team, we thought that one of the most important things that make college so memorable is the environment and the community that goes around outside of the classroom. So, using an easy-to-use user interface, our application, The College Life, is aimed for you to search for a college in any state, select which category you would like to know, such as food, nightlife, and more, in which it will then surround that city and college with those categories. So find your future, find your experience, find your college at The College Life.
I'll do that after. Where's the okay. So just gonna pull this up.
Hi guys, I'm Sean. I'm gonna go over the layout. So we decided to go with a pretty simple layout. Initially, just blue. Decided to go as simple as possible. Used a psychic thought API, it's super advanced. It's probably better that you don't see our app anyway.
Yeah. There we go.
There we go. All right. So
Originally we had a,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, there's our animation. So originally we had wanted just like an extremely simple app with one search bar on top, and that like will send you to your location on the map, and then you utilize the different categories for nightlife to choose, like it populates different venues on the map using Foursquare. But we couldn't really quite get Foursquare to interact with Google Maps, so we instead kind of had to do this multi-search bar function where like it essentially takes your location and puts it in this search bar and then stringifies your categories into the search bar, and then ideally would have hit search and then finally populates the app. Yeah. So yeah, I'll let Paul take it away with.
Yeah, sure. So
Actually, if you want to just hold this,
Need one of
your mics.
But anyways, you can actually type in many different things here. So if I type in Minneapolis, do it with one finger, the old school way. So this is going to connect to the data.gov API. And it populates all the schools within that area. So now what we're going to do is cross-coordinate the school with the Foursquare API. So this is, I've always wanted to go to Beta Institute, so that's why I'm going to select that. And it brings up subcategories. As you also see, it concatenates and strings it up here. So you can type it in and now you get that location. Now you can select different locations down here. Let's see. It even brings up an image. So you can kind of see what that looks like, as well as you can interact with the map itself to kind of, check it out, right? So let's see here. I think that's it. Oh, you can actually go to the web page too. So it brings in that URL. But really what we can do is, bring in a lot more information. We could go in the path of historical tuition rates, do some really further analysis and stuff like that. But that's it.
Yeah, I'm Rachel. I'm just going to follow up on what Paul just talked about with the logic. Our original idea is we were going to create an app that was not just for the party student. We were actually going to do it for just any applicants in general. The data.gov API that we used also incorporates tuition rates, acceptance. You can apply to colleges based on degree type, as in like master's, bachelor's associated, all the different majors. And then the applicant information that you need, like the ACT, SAT scores that you need, the number of essays that you'll have to write to apply to each university. So we essentially put that information all the way up on our app with all of the community information as well. And then the last thing that this is the only issue we had, and it's the last thing that we'll do in version 2, is that we want to create a secure user login and then create a favorites tab so that you can go back and save the universities that you're the most interested in. But we ran into a couple issues with the Google Authenticator, so that'll be the next version. Is there a question?
So, no, any questions, guys? No. Great.
Oh, sure. Hello. Okay.
All right, guys, this is Fantastic Four with Sports Manager. Oh, we got to skip all of them. Sorry.
Just a little background on the Fantastic Four name. We eventually were a team four because there's 4 of us. But this project went so well, or fantastic, it updated to that. But anyway, to begin, we made this project for Washburn Tennis program because it's a public school, and in public schools, there's a kind of a funding crisis, or not that much funding for projects like this. They really rely on like volunteers, pro bono, or well, boot camp, I guess. And the target audience is high school students, coaches, and parents. And the tools that we used to build this were 3 APIs, Active, Instagram, and YouTube. And then libraries were Momentum and Animate.js and Firebase. And the framework is done with Bootstrap, and Lindsay can talk about that.
Yep, I was mostly in charge of the front end design with this one, and because I knew that Virginia was close to this project and she's doing the website for him, she's actually going to use this in real life. So taking that into consideration and that I am a full-time graphic designer, she provided me with the actual Washburn High School brand design guidelines, and so that I knew that the app would easily integrate into what she was doing for them. We have a little animating tennis ball that we use with Animate.js. I did some research on sports teams, pro sports teams, and they were all overwhelming, busy, and messy, and I was all the script designer and how poorly they're done. So making this clean and easy to use was important to me. Also being mobilely responsive was important as well. Yep, we used Bootstrap for the mobile responsiveness. Outside of the scope of this, on my end, I would have loved to do something a little more advanced with the logos because that library is really cool. So moving forward with that, I'd like to do something. But that was my point.
All right, so the way we divided up this project, so Lindsay was doing kind of more of the front end, and then Ray and I were working more on the back end. I was getting the work to do with the Firebase database. So what you see here is the main thing that you come onto the page is you're going to have the users or the team roster here. So the most important thing is who's on the team and when's their next match. So this is specific to tennis right now. So you have here all the different players and what grade they're in and their Twitter handle or however you want to get on Snapchat. And then also upcoming here is the either the past and future matches. So one of the things with the past matches is you want to go back and be able to update what was the score for that match, and then also be able to see the future matches as to where they are. Like here, the next one coming up is in St. Louis Park at 5 o'clock, and there's no score there because it hasn't been played yet, right? So the way you get the information on the website is you go to the admin page, and here you can add a player. And you can also add a match. And some of this information has input validation, so it lets you enter a date and a time. And then here, if you try to enter a grade of K, it's not going to let you enter that, but it will let you enter a grade between 7 and 12. Because if you're playing high school sports, as a 7th grader, you can play on the varsity team, but you can't if you're in 6th grade. So it does limit you to grades 7 through 12. So there, change that. Anyway. When you input things here, then you can go back here to the main page, and it will show you if there was any new players or matches added. One of the things in the database is that as you push the information on, it's not necessarily in chronological order, it's not necessarily in alphabetical order, but when we do display it here to the web page, you'll notice that all the players' names are alphabetized by last name, and this team schedule is chronological by date. So that was by design because it doesn't make sense to have the dates all scattered around. So one of the things here, we can kind of go in here and edit. I see like, oh, I'm missing a score here for the South match. So I click over here, pops up a little modal where you can change the score and say like, yeah, of course Washburn won. Not only did they win, they beat them 7-0, so take that. You can save your changes, and then you'll see that it gets updated there too. Let's say I didn't really like this game against Edison. Another thing with the modals is I can either close it out here, using the close button, or I can come back here and cancel, so I don't want to make any changes, or I'm just saying, you know, I just didn't like that match at all, and we delete it, and you can see it gets removed both from the database and from the user interface. So that was kind of what I worked on mostly, was getting these schedule and rosters to work, being able to update and edit and delete them, and now Ray's going to speak about more of the APIs that we used.
Okay, this first API here, which is bringing in, no, I can do it. Maybe just stand right there and call it. Maybe, yeah. This first API we used for getting in the sports dates. Right, and it's like you have to like dissect all these strings and break them down into something that the API will actually take in, and then it pukes out something totally not what you put in there, right? So yeah, we ended up having to do quite a bit of changing to get, like, particularly the dates, you know what I mean? The dates were horrible, but we ended up, yeah, being able to pound those out. The thing is also is with the search in here, it was supposed to be like near Minneapolis, but for some reason we keep coming up with Omaha, and we found out that that was because we wanted boys tennis only. So that's like the closest boys tournament, or Manitowoc, I guess. What else do we have here? We have the YouTube tutorial videos, which will pull up a random YouTube movie based on hard-coded term that we're putting in there. Also found out that YouTube doesn't want to stop playing. You were to just, you know, go to another link, so we had to put that in there. What else do we? Oh, Instagram.
So another thing, part of the MVP was what we wanted to be able to show is a community within an individual sport, which is tennis. So if you have the football team, you have the basketball team, there's always this big team spirit thing going on, but tennis, it's an individual sport like golf. So another purpose of this app was to be able to bring parents and other players together. They know when the next match is coming up, and then also being able to show photos. So here, these are 3 photos that are pulling off of an Instagram account showing, so if parents take photos, it will update here to the website.
Yeah, the hope was that we could pull by hashtags, right? Well, they don't let you do that anymore. And if they do let you do that, you have to pay for it, or you have to be someone who's somebody, right? So since I'm really not somebody, I just kind of, yeah, bumbled my way through it. But yeah, so if you all smile, I have like 3 followers, and they'll all be looking at you. So.
So then hopefully what you'll see here is then it will update here on the website with that photo.
Yeah, see, I still have, there we go.
Point?
Yeah, well, now I'm just have to fumble through Instagram. That's my fault. I don't know how to use it. I'm old. One more picture. Really, Ray? Come on. There it is. Okay, smile again, because that other one kind of did. Okay, so I have to save it first. See, that's the problem.
And the mystery, and it's going to be so exciting when it shows up. Is that going to show up? All right.
Okay, and then we had to put a 10-second delay in there because it kept hanging on too much, right? So yeah, that's how old man uses this.
Okay, so to kind of finalize all, this was a website site that was for a public school where there are no resources, a way to build community around the tennis team, and a way for parents and other players to keep up to date as to what's going on, where's the next match, and a way to share photos from the matches and stuff. So then any of the parents would be able to upload photos and they would show here, and it'd be great. Things to do in the future, obviously we would like to have a private and public page. So public page shows just who the team is, maybe just the player name, obviously not any of the contact information, and where the next match schedule is, and then also tying it with a map API. So if you need directions as to where is the St. Louis Park High School tennis courts, it would provide that information too. Then we'd also have a private site, kind of double layered private site, one private site, so if you're a player or if you're a parent or guardian, you could log in and you'd see the contact information if you wanted to be able to send emails or keep updates as to, hey, last minute, because it's raining, we can no longer play outdoors, so we're gonna play indoors at the Lifetime Fitness thing. So kind of up-to-date information like that. And then another, more authentication, more for the admin of the site. So that would be the person who would be able to actually have privileges to add a player or add a new match to the thing. So kind of a multi-level website there. Anything else would be maybe add a blog so people can do match recaps saying, team played super well last Friday, come and watch him play next Tuesday at wherever. And that was kind of it. So that's what we have so far. And the big idea was then we would be able to expand this to include any sport for the high school. So not just tennis, but then they would be able to use the same framework for the football or for the little known sports like badminton or some of them that don't get all the funds and monies that basketball and football get. Questions? You guys are just odd.
Can we see it on mobile?
Is it on mobile? Yeah, but we can. What's that? I can't see without my glasses. What do you want it to do? Oh, just shrink it. Sure. So you see, you can still see the tutorials here. So this is basically, hey, I want to improve my serve. And this will go out to YouTube and pull out the whatever latest video. And these should be random, they pick them differently. The idea would be able to add more there, but right now. Yes, in the back.
Are you planning on integrating this with more back-end logic as the course progresses?
Well, yes, I am, or yes, we are. As we learn how to do more of that, yes. But as I said, there's some multi-level authentication that could go in to make it move an admin website and then just a authorized user website and then just a public for, hey, grandma wants to know when the next match is and where.
Nice.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, pretty cool. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes than you expected at first. Right? It's really cool. All right. Okay. Here it is. Oh, the camera.
Oh, okay. Does that work? We're almost done. 10 minutes, we'll be done. You guys are good to go.
Oh, really?
I don't know.
Thanks, Thanks, man. Duncan said so.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. You guys are.
lights. I think that's what what's up? Enlist.
All right, guys, this is Sleeping Guacamole and Enlist to assist. Enlist to assist.
Okay, so we are Enlist to Assist. I am Duncan. This is our volunteer finding website.
Sam. And I'm Andrew. Rob is also part of our project. He is currently getting investors in Las Vegas this weekend, so we want to be able to join us. A very important project.
He didn't really do much.
Our project, Enlist to Assist, came out of a conversation I had with my wife, who's a vice principal for Richfield Public Schools. We were kind of struggling a little bit with what we wanted to do, so I went and asked public education what their needs were, because they're always large, to go with this idea. Currently, their students require 60 hours of community service in order to graduate high school. They have no way to track those hours, so all of their students are required to do those 60 hours in their senior year. On top of that, students aren't really sure where to find volunteer work, so they're constantly asking administration, hey, do you have anything I can do in the office, which really isn't volunteer work. So they had a need to, one, track student hours for their 4-year career, help students find volunteer activities. There's also some scholarships that are awarded through the community based off of how many hours that you have and kind of the top performers for each class. So they want kind of a way to track that over time. And also to kind of say, hey, Mayor of Richfield, our students are getting a lot of free work, maybe kick back a little bit of money to our school system. So we had both a benefit and a curse in having an established process and a lot of requests for our project. And really one of the most difficult things was kind of paring that down to our MVP. To kind of go over a demo and kind of explain some of that. Sam. All right, let's go through it. So here we used, I guess we can go over that. So we used Bootstrap for the mobile responsiveness. We styled CSS, obviously. We used Google Maps API, Google Calendar API, a bunch of different libraries. The Firebase, we created, or Rob did, created a user account and an administrator account, or faculty account. And then we took the data from Firebase and put it on the website, and you also will see us submitting a form that incorporates Firebase. So here you will see Ricky Bobby up at top. This is his account. He has, so as Andrew said, each student requires 60 hours. So here's the 30 hours that he has done, and you just pull that down. And this is obviously from Firebase. You can see all of the hours that he has completed. We got one that was rejected. He didn't like the musician volunteer. And then we will submit, should we do this? Was it music or hockey?
Hockey coach.
So as he's filling out the form here, one of our struggles with APIs was Google Maps, which a lot of you have struggled with. When we wanted to populate some data later on, what we needed to do was convert an address into lat and longitude coordinates. We tried to do that all in one go and realized we should probably split that up. So we added the Google autocomplete feature that will allow them to type in an address. We'll format it correctly so that we can then convert that to lat and long for some other solutions later on.
Scroll down.
Oh, there's one. Too many fingers.
Inverted controls.
All right.
So this form is allowing them to submit hours for approval to administration. One of the things we'd like to do later on is to add in files and pictures so they can submit it from your phone or from a desktop, showing that, hey, somebody actually did. The student actually did show up, and here's proof that they did so.
You guys something else? Oh, okay. So well, I submitted the form, and you'll see that once I log into as an administrator account. But this next one is the find volunteer hours.
Yeah, so with the upcoming events, that's going to be our Google Calendar. So the idea behind it is that the faculty is going to be in communication with different organizations, and they're going to be the one kind of telling what's going on, when it is, how long it's going to be. And they're just going to put that information to a Google Calendar, which is then going to just populate just right there, kind of tell the basics. And once the current date passes that date on the calendar, it just gets rid of it. So it's always just going to be just what's upcoming, and it's not going to be 2 weeks ago.
And one other thing on this page, so if you look at the top, you see volunteer match as an external link, so that'll open up another tab. Initially, our plan was to incorporate that API into our program so that you could do those search and like by category. They didn't have an API for us to use without contact, so we can skip that.
We will log out and log into an administrator account, a faculty account. See a very different page, and you'll see that hockey coach is generated down at the bottom, and we will approve that. So say the faculty member wants to look for a particular student, so we search for Ricky Bobby, and sure enough, there he is with his 35. Remember before it was 30, and then the heat map. Maybe you want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, just super quick. This kind of shows centered on Richfield where students are volunteering. I changed the gradient and radius. One struggle we had was when we condensed it down to a phone size, those buttons kind of got a little kludgy. So we put in some media query, actually some bootstrap method just to get rid of them on the phone so they could actually see what's going on.
I guess I can log back into Ricky Bobby. You're gonna do a sign up? Or just toggle it? Oh yeah. Chris, you're getting you're gonna graduate in 2019.
Sure. I can take that off.
And you got 60 hours remaining. You got some work to do.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, you don't have any, but you could submit it. Yeah, I guess that's it for the demo anyways. We went through pretty much everything.
Questions?
Would you guys see this like other schools? It's definitely possible.
There's definitely a lot of things that we can do as part of like phase 2 for this project. I think maybe like a phase 3 is how do you standardize this? You can bring in other schools so that they're formatting their logos come in and they can maintain their own database of students and whatnot. So yeah, farther down the line.
Yes, Christian.
Oh, Chris. Does Volunteer Match have an API, or is that just?
They do. You have to contact them to get a key. And I got contacted yesterday, so just in time.
Can you explain the heat map? Wait, what is the?
Yeah, so if you want to switch over to that page. So the heat map is looking into our Firebase and looking at submitted and approved hours. So it's filtering by filtering by status is approved. Then looking at lat and longitude, which we grabbed from that autocomplete. We did the conversion there, and then we shoved those lat and longitude coordinates into Firebase. So we're pulling that through, looping through that data, and then plotting map points using Google Places, plus the visualization library. And then one thing to do later on is like, how do we weight this so that like more student hours at like the community ed building, like a larger heat map?
Okay. Yeah. So if you had multiple events in that same area, obviously.
Yeah, and then maybe putting some places on there. So, well, why is this such a large area? Well, it'll give me, it's community center. We've got a lot of events there.
Right. And you could almost time volunteers around being around certain like hot areas.
Yeah.
Like the parking lots.
So definitely, how much time do we have to put in on this project? Yeah.
So one thing we also did with Snapshot that we didn't show before is you can compare where students are at. So we just appended so you can create a big list, so you can see like where people are relative to each other, instead of just replacing it.
Yeah. You mentioned class totals. We wanted to add.
Oh yeah. So class totals, just again, that marketing to mayoral staff, school board, just giving them more data to show really how much students are contributing to the community. So there's a whole branch of stuff that we
So you can do like pizza parties.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for a pizza party.
How do you assign who the admin is? Is it when they sign up, they say I'm admin, or does an actual admin have to? Just curious.
Yeah. At phase 2, that would be our top priority, is kind of doing authentication.
Yeah, so it's just, you just get to choose student or faculty.
Yeah.
It's,
You guys can have it in such a way that when a program to a specific school, so they reach out to you guys and say, hey, we want to set it up, so you guys give them admin permission, only for that particular school, they will have access to whichever student signs up, and either they can customize and say only students that they give the link to sign up, they can get into the program, or whatever, but I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think giving the administration ability to do like a bulk upload of students per school year, that would be some good functionality, probably critical. Yeah, the other interesting thing working with school data is you can't really have students' information public. If it's not directory information, we can't really store it. So there's a big question of really what database are we going to use, and then how do we make that replicable as a marketable product?
Is plain text storage for authentication?
I think so. I work more on the API side.
Where are you storing? How are you storing the username?
So we're using Firebase authentication, so there's no password available in there.
Great. Perfect. Any more questions, guys? Anybody? No?
Cool.
That's a lot of work.
It's pretty cool. I gotta get my 60 hours of volunteer time in. Now that I signed me up for it. Yeah, it's fantastic. Oh wow. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I'll let us finish up our. If anybody hasn't completed their forms or the voting thing, please do so. Yeah. I just want to make a couple quick notes, man. I'm just astonished with how awesome all these projects were. I mean, there is a ton of really complicated stuff that all got added into these, and a lot of stuff that you guys had to work through, a lot of struggles. I mean, how many had that aha self-5 moments in class at one point in time during this? And anybody like, yeah, like those are my favorite moments. Like, I can't figure this out. There's no answer to this, and then it's like refresh. Oh, it works. Awesome. So. Yeah, you know what, and that's super rewarding. Hopefully these projects kind of let yourself kind of go down your own path and go, okay, I got to learn this thing that we didn't cover in class, but I'll have to have a set of knowledge here that hopefully I can apply to something in the future. How many use the moments, JS, just out of curiosity in the class? Okay, wow. And Google APIs? Any Google user Google APIs? Most everybody too. Oh, cool. Yeah, I mean, I just gotta say, yeah, it was really impressive. Both classes, man, just an amazing job on all these. I can't wait to see project 2, which is next week. Just kidding. Just kidding. Actually, I'm super excited. Next week we're getting into Node, which is going to be really, really fun. It's like my favorite thing to code in right now. So we're going to have a ton of fun with that. You guys, questions or anything before we wrap up? Anybody? Yeah.
So Monday our homework is due. What exactly are we outputting?
Homework is due for
this project.
Oh, this project?
Yeah, where do we put it? Yes. Is it to a group, or are we splitting that individually for get tables?
That's a good question. I think you could submit the group repo. That's probably fine. And I would say I'll include another column on this sheet for GitHub pages. So you can have a repo and your Git pages. And then I'll submit that to everyone, instructors, so they can look at it through that too, or the TAs. So you can look at it through that. Does that work for everybody? That's a good.
So what do we submit it to?
On which? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, there's a normal homework submission, right? Like for everything else. So put the link to our Git pages there, whatever.
Yeah, I think, that seems fine to me. I don't see why, because they just have to have a place to access your code. So, I mean, if you want to just link to the GitHub, that works fine. Unless TAs, unless you guys have something that works better for you guys, I don't look. Nick, come on. I'm sorry. Yeah. I would say that's the best way to do it. Bootcamp, Scott, just link to your GitHub pages and your GitHub repo. Yep. Okay. Cool. Any other questions, guys? Yeah.
Is that update for class or whatever? Our dating profile. Yeah, our dating profile.
When's that due? Oh, in 12? Okay. I don't think so, but you might want to confirm with T. I think it's off. I don't know. All right, guys. Thanks. We'll see you.
So,